How did you and Barrett Kohler come together to write and publish this book?
Well, it's a story that includes Demos, which is a network for ideas in action based in New York City, because I'm a distinguished senior fellow there. And Barrett Kohler and Demos, who have co-published this book actually, have begun doing some projects together. And so through Demos, I was introduced to Johanna Vonderling, who's now the vice president at Barrett Kohler for editorial content. And she was interested in this book from the very beginning and has been a marvelous advisor, tough editor, and so forth, to get from the original ideas to actually the book as it has been completed now.
Excellent. And what is the story behind the title and the subtitle of the book?
Well, the title is, I'll give the whole title first, Women Lead the Way, Your Guide to Stepping Up to Leadership and Changing the World, which is just a modest little title about changing the world. But I have been convinced for a long time that more women leading, particularly a critical mass of women, which I call the 30% solution, at least 30% women in any leadership group, changes the priorities, changes the approach, changes the style, all in positive ways that I think the world needs to change. So that was an easy beginning. Women, in my estimation, lead the way, even though they don't often have the opportunity to do so, or they don't have as much of an opportunity as I think women should have. The other part, the subtitle, Your Guide to Stepping Up to Leadership and Changing the World, is the more I went around and did the research and talked to people as I was getting this book all, sort of put together in my mind, I realized there were a lot of books that talk about the research of why balanced leadership is better. But there really weren't any books that helped women figure out, well, so what do I do? What role can I play in this myself? Either because it's a woman who's broken through to the top, and the question is, how can she help other women, how to open that door wider and bring more women along? Or it's young career women who want to, they know they don't want to be stopped because of artificial barriers. They want to get wherever their talent and creativity and energy will let them go. So a good half of the book really is very practical steps. And as I say in the conclusion of the book, where I look ahead to 2020, that in fact, if there were more women in leadership, if we reach the critical 30%, that opens the door obviously to many, many more women than that, then there would be some big changes in the world. And some of the things that we have tried to do over many years that haven't been done, in fact, would be able to happen. I think we'd have new answers for how to deal with poverty if we focused on single mothers in poverty and how they could become economically self-sufficient. I think we'd have a very different question about who gets elected to office if we had leadership programs for girls, starting when they were young and all the way through college and support programs after that. So I chose 2020 because it's 100 years after the women have gotten the right to vote, fought for and won the right to vote in the United States. And so I'm looking ahead as to how we would change the world if in fact women did lead the way.
That kind of answers the question of what the big idea of the book is, but is there more that you want to say about that?
Well, I would put it a little bit more succinctly in terms of what the big idea of the book is. The big idea to me is who makes the decisions changes what gets decided. And leadership has not yet been a big topic in the women's community. We do talk about electing more women to office, but we haven't pushed hard for the kinds of strategies that could actually make that happen. And when I look at other countries, they are way ahead of where the United States is on figuring out, how do we get there? How do we change the equation of who decides? How do we get to balanced leadership? So the big message is we've got to make that change happen, and then the book really is how do we go about doing that.
And then more personally, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, that's a longer story, actually. I've had a fabulous career. I started as a nurse, As I say in the book, I got fired on my first day on the job as a registered nurse. I mean, I looked terrific in my starched uniform and my little organdy cap, but I didn't stand up when a doctor came in the room. And I was fired, even though I was taking care of a patient was the reason that I was sitting down. And I think that made me look deeply at what problems were there. And so as various things opened up for me, and I've had many, many opportunities, then it became my own personal sort of ethic to open the door for others, to mentor other women.